Dr. Chee, you're a neuropsychologist. You could have had a very comfortable life being a neuropsychologist. Why did you enter politics?
It was a time where, after I came back to Singapore, you could see that there was just a very lopsided parliament, and the opposition was just not getting anywhere at all. And if you really think a little deeper into some of these issues, it just wasn't healthy for Singapore.
But it's more a question of style of governance, right? The country was successful, it was doing well, so when they say that when something works, don't fix it.
Sure. But then that's where the problem lies, you see, in a sense that when you say success, success for whom? This is where I feel that that was the big question in there. And how long, where were we going? And it's beginning to show right now what I've been thinking about 20 years ago when I first entered politics. Now, when you have a system whereby everything is top down, when it's very authoritarian, you kill off the creative elements right now.
That's the style of governance, right? But if you talk of success in terms of income, standard of living, Singapore is doing pretty well.
As I said, again, for whom? You see, if you look at the broad, the breakdown of what's going on, you find that a whole chunk of Singaporeans have been left out of that economic growth. And it's beginning to show right now with the baby boomers, the generation coming up. And that's what we've been saying for a long time ago already, where you have actually begin to get into a situation where people were plowing all the retirement income into their HDB flats, leaving them with little or no retirement savings.
You have labored on for 2.5 decades and you have not been elected. What keeps you going?
I think the whole idea that we're still not a democracy, that people still, the segment of our population that's still tolerating.
When you say we're not a democracy, how do you define that?
Well, how do we define democracy? Democracy is when you've got free and fair elections, right? Which we haven't got. The Prime Minister, the Elections Department is still working out from Prime Minister's office. Democracy is also one where you have.
But is there anything untoward? It's not. They're working out of the Prime Minister's office, but do you think there's any rigging?
No, we're not talking about rigging. We're talking about, for example, a situation whereby they draw the boundaries.
Okay.
We never know when your constituency becomes part of a GRC, becomes part of a single seat, and why. And this particular by-election is in itself very telling. Bukit Batok, as I said, in 1991, we came very close to winning it, and then it got roped into a GRC, and then 20 years later, then it gets spat out as a single seat again, without any kind of an explanation. And this is where I think that is a huge problem for the opposition. And as I said, also democracy also requires at least the media that it's free. Every TV station, every radio station, every newspaper is controlled, is owned by the government. That's a huge problem for us in the opposition wanting to get our message across.
But control of public media is not new, right? It depends. In some countries, certain parties control it, but you're saying
sure.
It's the government.
But hence that answers the question. We're not a democracy. If you want a democracy, let free the media, and let the media be able to report fairly in whichever way they deem fit, and make sure that at least both sides of the story of the opposition as well as the ruling party get out.
When you first started, when you came back, I think your style was very different. You were more aggressive. There was once when you used a loudhailer to shout across to Go Chok Tong. A lot of people have noticed a transformation. What brought this about?
I don't know whether it's something which I just want to be able to focus right now on what Bukit Batok residents, what their interests are.
No, but your transformation came with the elections.
That's something which it's something which has been used by the PAP. It's not something which I want to be talking about, simply because I think it's important that Bukit Batok residents know exactly what I would like to do for them.
Okay, but wait,
That's going to
your
be
transformation, your sort of more gentlemanly approach was seen also in the last elections. So it is not something about Bukit Batok. I'm just interested to know, did you decide that you had to change your
All I just
style,
want,
your political style?
my whole motivation right now, my entire frame of mind right now, if you will, is just focused on Bukit Batok.
And during the
making sure that,
elections, when you were more gentlemanly, what was your motivation
I don't
then?
think it was so much. I don't think it was so much a matter of whether it's. Again, as I said, all I want to do is be able to concentrate and focus on Bukit Batok and make sure that we begin to spell out our program. For anything else, I made it very clear. Anything else is a distraction, and that's not something which I want to talk about in between now and the election.
You say you have an affinity to Bukit Batok. In 1991, you came pretty close to winning.
What I said was that we came very close. SDP came very close to making sure that we campaigned very hard, and we polled. I think it was more than 48%. So it was a good election, and then it got roped into a GRC, and since then, since 1991 until now, it's been part of a GRC until the last elections, and then became a single seat again.
Okay, but have you kept in touch with the people of Bukit Batok in between?
It's been difficult because anytime we want to get into a constituency, Bukit Batok or otherwise, it's very difficult simply because every time you want to go in and do a program, right, you've got to get permission from the town council.
So your affinity to Bukit Batok is not one drawn from a continuing association, but one which, if you win the elections, you will develop.
So you can only talk about programs, whatever you want to develop for the constituency, and it has to be strictly confined to that.
I know you don't like to talk about character assassination and things like that, but it has been an issue. The Prime Minister has said that you have allowed your members to character assassinate, and at the end of it, you come and you say you don't want it. Yeah. What do you feel about that comment?
I'd like to ask anybody to please point out specifically when any of our members have attempted any character assassination of anybody else.
I think he was speaking of Mr. Paul Tambaya.
As he was character assassinating who again?
When he was commenting on some of on Mr. Murali, and they just felt that it was more a personal attack rather than, as you say, people should be attacking actions rather than personalities.
I'd like anybody to specifically cite what Professor Tambaya said about Mr. Murali.
Okay, and of course there's the other issue of Mr. Murali this time had said that he's spoken about the $1.9 million.
Yeah. The former MP of that constituency, and that's Mr. David Ong, had actually come up with a $24 million plan for that constituency. And it was, it was this absence of that project that David Ong had mentioned.
But mentioning just 1.9 million does not preclude the 24 million.
Oh yes, but you would have thought, right, that if there was such a project going on, he says, hey, look, we've got this program that's ongoing. I'd like to mention also that apart from these other projects, we have this other third generation park that they want to put up.
Is that really a political issue? Because if they pledge 24 million, it is quite unlikely that the government would renege on that, right? And it's just an omission rather than saying something that they didn't plan to carry out. It's more rhetoric, right?
Now, be that as it may, we said fine. That is not the issue that we want to pick on.
Because they wouldn't actually not commit the 24 million, right?
Yes, and that's the point that we want to emphasize, you see. He later then came up and look, he says that would be dependent on whether PAP is returned or not, whether he as a candidate would be returned as MP. And that was where we found it very disturbing. Okay, here is something that is later admitted he admitted that it was funding neutral.
Let's talk town councils now. You claim that you can serve the people in the town council and improve the environment, but without the support of the government infrastructure, can you really do this?
Why not? And why would the government, and I'm glad you used the word government, because the government is a different entity from PAP. As a government coming in, you have the obligation to serve everybody equally under the law. That is a given. And I think the PAP has admitted as much, saying that the government has to serve in a non-partisan way.
But do you think that you would enter Bukit Batok with all the expertise and experience and able to manage the town council as well as town councils that have been managed for decades?
Yeah. Not only do we expect to match what PAP town councils have done, we will surpass the standards. And by that I mean...
What gives you this confidence?
Because we've got our expertise lined up already.
From?
We've got a guy that's been helping out, or has worked with PAP run town council. Extensive, I don't use this word like...
One person?
Extensive experience. Now he's going to be the one, right, that we're going to put together a team. We've got other people with estate management experience in there. And these are things that are hugely important for us to be able to run. No, running a town council is not as complicated as the PAP makes it out to be. I've done it. I've had done this with previous town councils that we've held before. What you really need to do is...
Are you talking of Potong Pasir? Are you talking of SDB and Potong
we're talking
Pasir?
about Bukit Batok, Bukit Gombak, and Nee Soon Central there as well. So,
but
for
they
us,
have not, if let's say you look at some of them, I mean, the observation, even among the residents, is that they have been neglected.
I don't think that's correct.
In Potong Pasir?
No, not in Potong Pasir. I'm talking in Potong. You see, if you think about what has been going on, Potong Pasir, we were not, I wasn't around as much because, I was more involved with the Bukit Gombak and Nee Soon Central. And over there, those town councils have not been, in terms of its work that's done, had any, negative, adverse reports, right? So these are things that we want to talk about in terms of running town councils. We're very confident that we're going to be able to at least, if not not only match them, but really, as I said, it's no exaggeration that says we aim to surpass them in terms of management of town councils, transparency and accountability.
Okay. You have also said quite emphatically that you will make Bukit Batok the envy of Singapore. Mm-hmm. Can you elaborate on this?
Over and above the hardware, if you will, of keeping our lift landings clean, making sure that our corridors are swept, I think that's another element to the work of an MP, and that is to bring the constituents, the residents there, together as a community. Right now, everybody it comes back from work, they go into their homes and they shut the door, and that's it. We live very atomized lives, right? And I think the MP is that facilitator, that can be that enabler, to bring people together. And I'll give you a specific example of how we're going to do this. One of our programs, we call it Hearts for Bukit Batok, is to try, to get the residents there to adopt a family, a lower income family. And when we say that, we don't mean just to give money, but just spend time making sure that at least, we uplift some of these low income.
You have people willing to do this?
We're going to have, I'm talking about the residents. Yeah. We're not going to just do that and use it as handouts. But, the whole thing is just bring families together and just kind of build,
So you're going to inculcate a sense of wanting to share and wanting to care for the people. How are you going to persuade the people to do that?
Well, that's where that MP comes in, isn't it?
Okay.
That's how we're going to be able to reach out. I continue to believe that Singaporeans have also this compassionate side to them, and they do want to contribute. more than just coming back from work and just doing the minimal. But you've got to be there. You've got to be there. You've got to have programs. You've got to be able
Have
to
you had
inspire.
similar programs before in engendering social cohesion?
It's something which you almost need to not in a constituency, obviously, because we haven't had the opportunity to run a constituency yet. But when you look at a situation like, for example, within SDP, all right, almost zero resources. How do you begin to motivate people when you don't have the means to hire and fire that can, right? When you want to do that, you've got to get in there. You've got to inspire people and to bring them together and say, hey, look, this is what we can provide that direction there.
And this is what you've been able to do?
And I think we have been able to at least, build SDP up at least to this extent where people have come together and see, hey, there's something here which we see that we like and we want to do more of. And the same thing, it's that same kind of
Is your
spirit.
membership increasing? Are you getting more people wanting
Very
to
much so,
join?
very much so in that sense that...
What sort of people are coming forward?
You have... It cuts across all demographics. Like we've got the young youth people, as young as we've got 16-year-olds, wanting to say, hey, can we join?
And what do they see that SDP represents that they want to align themselves with?
Different people come in and tell us, sometimes they like that idealism about the SDP.
So it's not your motivation, which is more that things were not working well and they wanted to make a difference.
I don't think you can really begin to pass. I think somebody's got to be there to say, hey, look, this is where we're going. This is what we're about. This is what we stand for. And people begin to believe and see that, hey, you are walking the talk, if you will. And they begin to get inspired and want to come and be part of this whole thing. And that's what we hope to do with Bukit Batok. So.
I've got a question here because, you have stood in many different constituencies. You're almost homeless. You started out in Marine Parade when you first were a novice politician. You went to McPherson, then Jurong. Then, of course, there was an election where you were not eligible.
Sure.
Then you went to Holland Bukit Timah GRC, and of course, you've been there again twice. But do you have a sense of affinity to any particular constituency?
That's propagated by the PAP, all right? Because they play this game of, as I said, putting in GRCs there and here, and it makes it almost impossible for anyone, right, to ensure that, hey, look, this is where we want to contest, because you never know how that's going to be drawn in to become that constituency, whether it's going to remain in that area or not.
But Dr. Chee, if we take a broader view now and look at the general popularity of the party, how it has fared by looking at the popular vote from election to election, I think the record doesn't look too good. You started out in having 24.5% of the popular vote in the Marine Parade GRC. And then when you went into McPherson, it dropped to 10.6. Jurong, it dropped to 8.1. And it was halved in the 2006 general election.
I think you've got some of the figures there. Yeah.
Yeah.
You think you've got some of the figures there wrong. But in any case, just to address that point.
It's been a declining popular vote for your party.
But when you look at it and you track whether how that trend has been going, you find that coincides very nicely with the advent of social media. And so you've got to be asking your question, what's happened before and what's happening after? And this is where I to address your point about whether Singapore is a democracy or not. When you have the entire media in the hands of the government, you're going to get problems with the opposition as a whole, making inroads.
I think it's been a reverse trend for the Workers' Party.
I really don't think so. If you look at it, it's been going up as well. But in any case, in our situation, right, with as I said, the onset of social media in the mid 2000s, that's why people begin to take a second look in SDP. That's because we've been able to use social media, YouTube, Facebook, and so on and
Which
so
means
forth.
that the popular vote would have improved.
Yes,
But it hasn't. It has declined.
I don't think it has. If you think about it, if you talk about,
I'm just talking about election figures now.
yes, I am.
Yeah.
That's what I'm referring to. If you take a look at the what SDP has been going up, been performing, bar the 2015, because that's where the opposition as a whole
Declined.
decline.
Okay.
Right. That's due to other factors as well. But if you're talking about SDP as we're going up, people coming up and taking a second look at the SDP, you cannot deny. You just simply cannot deny that that's been an upswing, right? In terms of both, in terms of people, in terms of its electoral figures as well, election figures as well. And if you look at just the last GE, the swing against opposition parties, right? SDP registered the smallest swing against us as compared to 2011. So these are the things that give us an indication that with time, SDP's as far as the vote, the public.
But the popular vote was the lowest at 3.76% in the last election, the last general election. The SDP share of the popular vote. It had dropped from, I think, a high of 10 point something percent. It had dropped to 3.76%.
I don't follow.
These are the election statistics, and I'm referring to what they call the popular vote.
Yes,
For
yes.
each party. So the SDP has been suffering a gradual erosion of their popularity.
Take a look at the figures again. As I said, in terms of votes against the parties, the particular opposition parties, you're talking about the SDP has held our ground, at least in the best among some of the opposition parties, right? And I come back to this point again, that because that social media has afforded us that opportunity to be able to present our message, right? What we're about to the public, and that's given us that ability then to begin to reach out to the public. And as I said, it's not
in terms of voting, right? You're talking of reaching out now.
Yeah, we're talking about voting as well. And this is where I say, in terms of where we are headed, that trajectory is there, and people are beginning to get a lot more receptive to what we have to say. And so these are things that we want to, the point that I want to make is that it's pre-internet or pre-social media days and post the advent of social media has given us.
You think social media has helped to?
Hugely. And let's not kid ourselves, seriously. And I say...
How does that translate into people voting for the SDP?
Well, that's similar in terms of how how votes get translated if you're able to get the message out to the people, right? People don't hear your message, people don't know, and then your opponent is able to start labeling labeling you and so on and so forth, and then people get this misconception of what you stand for, who you are, and so on and so forth. And that's quite a natural thing, isn't it? When people don't know or have this misunderstanding of misperception of you, then your support is not going to be there.
Okay, I think in this election, in this by-election, you have presented yourself as a candidate that people should vote for. But do you really think that people are voting for the candidate or the party?
Both. I think that's it's important that we're talking about people going out and making sure that people know what the party stands for and the candidate is all about as well. So I think that's it's a combination of both.
So you really feel that if they're going to vote for the candidate, then your strategy would be correct. But if they're voting really for the party, then selling yourself may not be effective as far as votes are concerned.
Yes, but I've never said anything about selling myself. I said that it was
You're selling your
combination of both.
integrity, you're selling what you can
I'm not
do.
selling anything. I'm not selling anything. I just want you to be very clear, okay, that it's important that people know what the party stands for, right?
Okay.
And the party, then the candidate then also represents the party. So it's a combination.
But you
of
made
two
promises that you would work full time, that you will work for the
Oh,
people.
yes,
It is
sure.
more what Chee Soon Juan would do, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's not what the party, it's not what SDP can do, but what Chee Soon Juan as the MP for Bukit Batok
You
can
cannot you cannot do anything on your own. That's a given, isn't it? You always need the party to be there to be able to do the things that you promise.
do. You find that you may have a difficulty convincing them because you don't have a track record? So it's more, I promise I will do this. Is that a more difficult task for you to convince
No,
the
I-
people that you
yeah.
can deliver?
Sure, I think people have seen it, and I keep saying, I'm just not telling you, we're demonstrating to you, right, that in terms of what we are going to be able to do, just look at the SDP, right? One example would be our policy papers, right? That even with minimal resources, right, and zero state funding, right, we're able to come up with a whole series of these policy papers on key areas that people are very concerned about. You're talking about housing, you're talking about healthcare, you're talking about the economy, education, and so on, right? And many of these ideas have been echoed and even adopted by the ruling party. And the latest example is just, the most recent example is just, we've come up with social programs for Bukit Batok, right? We're talking about the student mentoring program, right? We call it Pathfinder. And then we have also come up with some program for the elderly, in particular the elderly poor. And it just so happened that Mr. Murali then also, following that, comes up with these programs. And this is where I say that, we're taking the lead, right?
In Bukit Batok?
Yes, as far as these two programs are concerned.
No, you introduced these programs into Bukit Batok before you even have taken charge of Bukit Batok? Or is this a
They were
program you have?
proposed. They were proposed for Bukit Batok.
These are propositions?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, they were proposed. Just, I think, yesterday and apparently today, Mr. Murali has also, begun to propose these programs.
Okay, so you're saying that you had authorship of them. You had come up with the ideas before what Mr. Murali is proposing.
Yes, the
because
whole
they
idea.
sound very similar.
Yes, I think this is the point we're making is that, look, these are things that the SDP has come up with, and that's why to answer your question about us demonstrating our competence.
Are they identical? Because for the elderly people, elderly care, he's talking about healthcare cooperatives. Is that something that you had suggested?
This is where we're talking about. I haven't read the details yet, but in terms of student mentoring.
Student mentoring, he's
yeah,
also suggested,
yes.
and that came from you earlier.
We actually had proposed this.
People won't doubt that your intention is to work for the people politically. But what do you think are the chances of your winning this election?
I don't talk about chances. If you want to talk about chances, let's go to, I encourage you to go to visit Marina Bay Sands, right?
All right.
This is what I think it's important that we need to go out and do the work.
Well, how confident are you that you...
It's not something which I've had a lot of time to think about.
Is it hope or confidence?
If we didn't have the hope of winning elections, we wouldn't be in this at all. We'll have enough time to find out, and the most important thing is the polls on Saturday.
Yes. Dr. Chee, thank you very much.
Been a pleasure. Thank you.